Okay, hi guys, and welcome to the show. And today we are finally reviewing the Hamilton Khaki mechanical field watch. I know, long overdue, and I've got to give a quick shout out to my good friend Alberto, who has lent this fantastic watch in. A very important watch, an iconic watch, a historic watch. And I actually owned one of these back in the day, and that's kind of why I didn't do an unboxing, because I already know this watch very well indeed. And this was before I had a channel, and then I had the Khaki King, which is the automatic day-date part of the Khaki line, and I have reviewed on the channel, so have a look back. So of course I'll do wristwatch check before I get into this, and as we are talking about iconic military watches, I had to pop on the old 1945 Omega, the 30T2 based pilot's watch. This was of course worn by the British RAF pilots, and the Khaki was worn by the Americans, so a bit of an allied themed video today. So this is the reference H694190, and of course Baselworld 2018 we saw a new member to the Khaki mechanical family, which is even more faithful to the historic field watches that this particular version is based on, and we'll discuss that in just a moment. So if you're not familiar with Hamilton, which you should be by now, it's a brand that I've covered many times, a very important brand, and they were founded in 1892 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Now of course part of the Swatch Group, but let's not forget that for the majority of its existence it was an American made an American company. Their fundamental aesthetics and styling is deeply inspired by their history. So the company really cut their teeth in terms of watchmaking with the expansion of the American Railroad. Obviously, way before quartz, they needed high precision and affordable timekeeping devices, and Hamilton was so successful at this, they had a 56% market share, which at the time, the railroad watches, was hugely significant. And they turned this expertise of precision and accuracy and watchmaking on a large scale into their military watches, the first of which was during World War I. Hamilton produced wrist-mounted field watches for the American forces, which quickly became preferred over the larger, more cumbersome pocket watches. They continued to supply watches for the military into World War II. In fact, Hamilton's commitment to the war effort was so significant, they actually suspended commercial production entirely for the entirety of World War II. Hamilton also made a line of extremely impressive marine chronometers for the US Navy. After the two world wars, Hamilton went on, especially in the 50s and 60s, to have a boom period, producing many iconic watches. In 1957, they introduced the world's first electric watch, replacing the mechanical mainspring with a battery-powered system. The brand was a favorite of the blue suede shoed king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. And then, of course, with the breakout of the Vietnam War, Hamilton once again returned to create probably their most well-known line of the military specification field watches. That is where the watch we're looking at today is very much inspired by. And the brand has continued from strength to strength, starring in over 400 movies, one of the most notable being the Interstellar watches, of course, which I've also reviewed. Beautiful Flieger-inspired pilot's watches with that little bit of American flair in its styling. So let's take a look at the descendant of one of these Vietnam watches. There's another version with a very dark olive dial and olive style canvas strap. This particular version comes on this kind of sand khaki strap that has a leather lining on the inside, and then on the outside it is canvas and stitched with these quite unusual, it reminds me a little bit like Staples, steel loops here with a signed Hamilton buckle. A nice touch. It's not something you typically see. And what I really like is on the strap they've actually framed the holes for the tongue of the buckle with steel to stop it fraying, and also just give it a little bit more robustness. Nice touch. They haven't cut any corners on the strap at all. It's quite thick and substantial. So let's get the basic dimensions out of the way first. The diameter is 38 millimeters. We have a thickness of just a smidgen over 9 millimeters. Lug to lug is 47, and the lug width is 20 millimeters. So a really nice size. Definitely a crowd pleaser. Still larger than its ancestors, but big enough to be relevant in today's world. Now the case is completely satinized with a really nice finish. It's just beautifully done. So it's entirely stainless steel, of course. We have a very slightly domed sapphire. I was quite impressed that it's sapphire at this price. Substantial large crown for the manual wind. It's not screw down. The water resistance is 50 meters, and we even get drilled lug holes, which is fantastic because you're certainly going to have fun changing the straps on this. The dial itself is a very nice matte black, and we have just a slightly grainy texture that you only notice when you're looking at it extremely close up. We have the 24-hour markings, Khaki mechanical written at the 6 o'clock, and then Hamilton at the 12. Triangles that are loomed. We also have loomed hands, syringe style hands, an arrow tip for the seconds with a very large lollipop counterbalance. The loom unfortunately does not extend to the Arabic numerals of the 12-hour markings, unfortunately. But the seconds hand, the tip is also loomed. We do get a date there at the 3 o'clock in white, and it is framed also with a little white outline there. The printing is done exquisitely well, what you'd expect from the quality of Hamilton, and we get a minute track running around the outside. Bezel is also very simple. All the finishing is exactly the same, except for the screw down case back, which we do have in a radial brushed finish, just slightly differing from the satinato of the main case. The case is extremely simple, and this is for good reason, because obviously these were made, well, the originals were always made in huge amounts, so it's just, literally case back, the main case. The bezel is actually part of the case, and then the crystal and dial and the movement. So, it was done to keep it as simple as possible. One of the things I love about this watch is the action of the winding. It is a pleasure to wind, and it's very silky and feels extremely solid. If we pull out the crown, we have quick set for the date, and if I pull it out all the way, it is of course hackable. So you can see the seconds hand has stopped. If I push it back in, off it goes. So the movement is the ETA 2804-2. It's a 17 jewel movement with the date complication, with a healthy 42-hour power reserve. Because this is only manual wind, you don't have that automatic rotor, which keeps the movement exceptionally thin. In fact, most of the time this ETA is used for dress watches, although don't be fooled, it is an absolute tank. Extremely reliable, and you have the added advantage of it being less complex than its automatic counterparts, so it's going to be a lot more affordable to service and repair over the years. We have the Inca block shock protection, stone lever escapement, and the yoke winding system. It operates at 28,800 vibrations an hour, so we get a really nice smooth sweep, which is something you don't really typically see at this price level, especially with the Japanese competition, which typically you're going to see, slower speeds, 21,600, etc. Now, of course, Hamilton being part of Swatch, they have access to the ETA movements. So very, very easy and affordable to maintain. Any watchmaker can repair this. Accuracy wise, I'm looking at +4, which is absolutely fantastic, especially considering its price. Although it is luck of the draw, these are not regulated, but you can easily regulate them and really get them performing wonderfully. Looking at it from a profile, you see the lovely curvature of that sapphire, the signed crown, and just look at that thinness. It's fantastic. In my opinion, the watch that's perhaps inspired this particular model is the FAPD 5101 Type 1, dating from around 1970. You can undoubtedly see its remarkable similarities, the hands, the dial layout, etc. Even the shape of the lugs and the case. So let's pop this bad boy on the wrist and see how it wears.
Moments later.
I have a 6 1/4 inch wrist. It wears perfectly fine for me. It's incredibly light. We're only looking at about 60 grams. So you don't even really notice you have it on. Just to give you an idea of that weight, some of my G-Shocks actually weigh about the same. So, but of course it's far more slimmer. Which has the added advantage of sliding under the cuff very, very well. The lug width is quite large, so if you have extremely skinny wrists, which is even skinnier than mine, which is very rare, but it is possible, it might slightly overhang. These are deliberate because they have extra space for you to put your NATO straps, etc., especially really thick Zulu, military Zulu straps. Which I think this would look absolutely gorgeous on. In fact, actually, I might slip in a shot of that just so you can see. So very, very legible at a quick glance, extremely comfortable, and you feel the quality. It's very solid as well. It's definitely a solid, well-made timepiece. So let's summarize the watch.
More moments later.
We'll start off with the positives. Well, without a shadow of a doubt, it's an incredible value proposition. I mean, in terms of bang per buck, it offers so much. It's very difficult to compete, especially with a Swiss-made watch like this, for the money. I think it's wonderful that Hamilton still offer this American legend that has such a long, illustrious past. So you've got the heritage, you've got the prestige of that heritage. I think this watch encapsulates everything that is great about Hamilton. There's almost a respectable honesty about this watch. It's free of any superfluous embellishment, built for task and unpretentious. Its utilitarian aesthetic might not be to everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's been beautifully updated. It's wonderful to see a return of the more vintage-inspired offering as well. I think where it's placed in the market is fantastic. An excellent first watch if you want to dip your toe in the mechanical waters, I guess you could say. This is a great way to start. Or even if you're a veteran watch collector and you want to add a classic military field watch, this is a very affordable and fun way to go. That's an important word. It's very fun. I think also it's great to see something for the smaller wristed. There are larger versions available. There is even a 45mm with different dial layout. I might have to double check, but I'm quite sure it's beyond 40mm. It's much larger. And the quality, I mean, it's excellent. I mean, you really do get a feel of that Swiss quality. And certainly a lot safer bet than going vintage. So it's a safe way to go, especially if you're not or new to mechanical timepieces. You haven't got the attached risks of vintage watches. But also, it's not just affordable to buy and own. It's going to be extremely affordable to maintain over the years. It's something you can be proud of, hand down the generations. And I love the fact they haven't cut corners on the straps. I mean, that's a refreshing thing to see. Definitely incredible value for money. I keep pinching myself when I think how much this costs. And the most important thing is, if this is your first mechanical watch, when you wind it, you get a little bit of that magic. And if you're new to mechanical watches, you might forget to wind it and etc. But once you get into that routine, it becomes almost like a ritual that you really enjoy. It's just a wonderful way to get people into more traditional watches. But coupled with that, it's a really robust, rock-solid watch. You've got premium materials like the sapphire glass, so you just don't have to worry about it. Makes an excellent weekend beater watch as well. Okay, so the negatives. Well, the lugs are, I think, a little bit overdone. I mean, look at that gap there. I feel they didn't need to be so large. I think actually it has more to do with Hamilton trying to please the larger wristed as well. Because look, I mean, look, you've got look at that gap. You've got tons of space, and even there's a notch, if you see that in the actual case, which is completely unnecessary, redundant. So it does wear a little larger. Actually, in my opinion, it wears like a 40mm, I have to say. Its biggest downfall is definitely that loom. It's a shame we didn't see the loomed Arabic numerals like in the automatic counterparts that are actually loomed, but of course you have to pay extra. You have poor orientation, they're very small markers, and also the loom on the seconds hand is only on the tip. I really expected the lollipop counterbalance to be loomed, a bit like on the SKX. A bit of a missed opportunity there. The only other negative I can think of is with this extremely utilitarian, no-nonsense aesthetic, it's not going to be as versatile. I mean, you certainly can't dress it up. You're going to be limited to what style of attire. I just don't feel this will go with a suit. It's just a little bit too tool-tastic for my liking. I mean, you could do whatever you want, but if you are jeans and t-shirt kind of a guy or something fun for the weekend, then yeah, this has got you covered, absolutely. Ultimately, this is an outstanding watch. It's very, very rare that you see a mechanical Swiss-made timepiece of this price range. I mean, we're talking the same price range as a fashion watch, and yet you've got the heritage, you've got the style, you've got the robustness, you've got real mechanical watchmaking. Okay, it's a little bit of a mundane ETA that we've seen 1,000 times before, but I really do think this is a gateway into serious watches, and you know, even a connoisseur would be proud to wear this. And this just goes to show how Hamilton absolutely rule the roost when it comes to the entry level. I highly, highly recommend this watch. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Not perfect by any means, but you know, you can forgive it because well, it's just so affordable, guys. I mean, really is. Do let me know your thoughts, queries, comments, opinions, all the rest of it down below, especially if you own this watch. I'd love to hear your opinions, how you're finding it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and found it useful. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. Okay, ciao.